in the northern hemisphere, the leaves have turned into golden shades of amber and ruby. A few stubborn leaves still cling to the trees, but they've mostly fallen onto the ground, and they're ready to be raked up in the urban centers and trampled on in the forests. Autumn has settled in, and it's the season to remember to be thankful. You know, thankfulness, of course, it isn't relegated to any time of year or holiday, but we do often need reminders to be thankful. Have you ever been having a bad day? Nothing terribly worrisome or tragic is occupying your thoughts, but you're just grumpy? Then something triggers you to feel thankful. Maybe it's a memory of how God has taken care of you in the past. Maybe how He resolved a genuine worry. Perhaps it's an unexpected kind gesture from a friend or a stranger. Whatever the catalyst, when you felt thankful, what happened to the grumpies? They went away, or at the very least, they took a back seat, didn't they? You know, we can forget to be thankful, and this isn't a new issue. There was a group of individuals who lived long ago, during the time that Jesus was here with us on earth, who had a good reason to be thankful. But only one seems to have caught the reminder. This group of 10 lived outside a village close to Galilee and Samaria. They were all men, all outcasts, all separated from their families, all without hope or help from the medical practitioners of the day. A priest could declare them clean or healed, but how could they be clean if there was no cure for the uncleanness? They were Jews, mostly, except for one man from Samaria. Now, the traditional animosity between the Jews and the Samaritans, it was likely overlooked in this little group. They were united, you see, by their affliction. They were lepers. Now, the disease that ravaged their skin and their limbs, it condemned them to this life, living together in mutual sorrow, away from the kindnesses of family and strangers alike. Somehow this group of 10 learned about Jesus. He was someone who could, if they dared to believe it, give them hope. And one day the news made it into their colony. Jesus was passing by. The 10 saw the crowds gather around Jesus as He and His disciples passed on their way to Jerusalem. They kept away from the crowds. They knew their place. But from afar, they watched. They had heard that Jesus could heal, that He had healed. Did one suggest that they run through the crowd toward Him? This was their chance. They had to make a bold move. Did the others hold Him back and reason that the crowd would be afraid of them? They were outcasts after all. Well, we don't know what they talked about as they waited, but they were motivated to try. They had to talk to Jesus. This might be their only chance for healing. And so they called out to Him. And we read about it in the book of Luke, chapter 17, in verses 11 to 19. Now it happened, as He went to Jerusalem, that He passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. Then as He entered a certain village, there met Him 10 men who were lepers, who stood afar off. And they lifted up their voices and said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. So when He saw them, He said to them, Go, show yourselves to the priests. And so it was that as they went, they were cleansed. Now Jesus hadn't touched them. He hadn't come close. And the marks of their disease still stood where they had when they woke up that morning. And yet, in faith and hope, they followed Jesus' instructions. The 10 kept away from the crowds and the thoroughfares, as they knew they must, and they walked toward the temple. It may have been gradual, or perhaps it happened all at once. Either way, as the 10 walked in faith, they were healed. The wounds and the sores simply vanished. The men were whole again. They no longer needed to be outcasts. They could embrace family members again. Their hope was restored. 9 of the men ran. Well, We don't know where. Did they continue on to the priest for the official all clean declaration? Did they merge with the others on the crowded byways and run to their families? We don't know about the 9. We do know about one of the 10, the man from Samaria. He ran back to Jesus. Let's pick up his story again in Luke 17, now in verse 15. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, returned and with a loud voice glorified God, and fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks. And he was a Samaritan. So Jesus answered and said, Were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? Were there not any found who returned to give glory to God except this foreigner? And he said to him, Arise, go your way. Your faith has made you well. Now the 10 each had a miraculous reason to be thankful, but only one turned back and thanked Jesus. His faith, Jesus explained, had made him well. Now each of the 10 were healed, and so each of the men had faith. But even men and women of faith can forget to be thankful. We need reminders. When you see the amber and ruby leaves, remember, Jesus is our only hope. We too are suffering from an incurable condition that only He has the miraculous remedy for. Jesus offers that remedy, salvation, freely to each of us. We don't have to shout for His help from the fringes of a crowd. We can whisper it in our hearts, and He will hear us. If you haven't whispered your thanks to Him in a while, this is your reminder. Thankfulness isn't just for the holiday season. Gratitude can cure a case of the grumpies and much more all year long, and that's worth remembering.